So we now have a panel discussion, and we're hoping for lots of input from the audience. So two of the panelists you already know, and we've added two people. One is Hilde van Wijngaarden, who is the director of the University Library at the VU University in Amsterdam, so Masud's counterpart. And the other person is Professor Katy Mason, who's the dean of the School of Business in Salford Business School, if I say it perfectly. And the other two you already know. So each of them will have a 5-minute introduction, talk about what their role in CAN could be, what they see the network could achieve, whatever it is they want to share with you. And then I'm really hoping for some very lively discussions with all of you. So I'll start with Hilde and Katy, because you haven't been speaking to this audience yet. You're holding the microphone, Hilde, if you want to go ahead.
If we talk about knowledge diversity, it's about diversifying our collections at the university, because we not just need mainstream collections, we not need the traditional scientific academic papers or monographs. We need more than that. We need, I've heard a new word, lived experience. We need oral history. We need all kinds of different sources from all over the world that represent other perspectives that we are so important to do our teaching and learning at our university. So that is why we have been thinking about this, and because in Northwestern European universities, students come in and they see books in the library, they see articles in the scientific journals, and they don't recognize themselves. They say, okay, this is a different background. This is not my background. So we have to be aware of this, and we have to offer them different types of material to make them feel at home. That's one thing, but also to do justice to bring in more diversity also in research. So that is so important. And now it's more important than ever. Especially because the big tech, the big publishers, the big deals that we are using, they're all focused on the same kind of resources. They're all focused on the high impact journals. And of course, it's very important to support them and also to open them up. But there's much more than that. And now, especially when we look at the impact of AI, it's actually even making these mainstream collections being accessed or being in the picture even more, because a general AI chatbot will answer your questions the way that most questions have been answered. It's not about the truth. It's not about valued information. It's about what most people have said. So now we run the risk of losing a broader perspective. And we have to take care that that does not happen. So we also have to be aware as libraries that one of the problems here is actually our own fault. I'm very sorry. Open access has actually produced a model wherein the rich universities, the rich researchers can publish because they are able to pay for the APCs, pay for the big deals, and produce their knowledge. And the rest of the world can read, but can't publish. So this balance has gone totally off. So this is another reason that we have to be aware and look at what we offer in a new way. So what do? We work together with libraries, of course, and our partners in the international networks to look at a broader way of offering the material that we use, and also move away from big tech and big publishers to look at a broader way of publishing, a new way of publishing that allows us to take back control. And I think that is really important now. Look at digital autonomy, we should be the ones that can safeguard our information. But also locally at the VU University, we've been looking at how to change our collection policy, how to do it in a different way, and also how to involve our communities and diverse communities at our university to work with us. we've been setting up thematic libraries, and we invite different groups to come together and tell us what they would need, and we provide them with the materials that they need, and we also make a space for them so they can come to the university and feel surrounded by the knowledge that they are familiar with and that they recognize, and they feel more valued and start to work on that together. So that is one of the things that connects the global to the local, and I think that is really important. And it's also our way of offering broader perspectives to have the broader minds developed that we are so working hard about at the VU University. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hilde. Right. Next person up is Katy Mason, please, Katy.
Thank you. So I'd like to just wear 3 different hats to sort of contrast and then show how things come together a bit. So my first hat is as a researcher. So I'm a professor of markets, and I'm really interested in how we make and shape moral markets so that we embed our values, not just value as in economic value, but social and environmental values into the way we organize market systems. And that way we all get to act well without thinking about it very much. So that's what I've been working on. And I've worked with some very inspirational PhD students, including Winnie Onyas, who's done amazing work on frugal innovation with communities in Africa, specifically Uganda, working who live with AIDS and live quite often in impoverished circumstances, and started to do artful things with pill containers, and then developed an artful economy within their community around which they got much pleasure and generated some income for themselves, and most importantly became a community of practice together. Also Josie Fernandez, who set out to do a marketing study on how we use digital marketing in Brazil, which actually ended up with going into favelas and seeing how they use WhatsApp to safely organize and generate a whole economy around people living in favelas doing favela tours without getting tourist shot or endangering their own lives. So people running cafes, cooking food in their own homes, creating crafts could all benefit when they work together as a community. So those are the sorts of things we mean when we talk about moral markets. I also want to talk to you a little bit about what that means in the way that we do research and develop our methods. You don't see many methodology papers that talk about how to use WhatsApp. And actually what we do as researchers, when we work in this engaged and collaborative way, we actually don't tell the truth about what we actually do in our methods when we're doing them, because working with communities, working with people who are actually impacted by the research we're trying to do, actually requires us to flex and adopt some of the practices that they're already performing. And so we have to walk with them, alongside them, and we learn from them and they learn from us, and we co-produce a genuinely new way of being in the world together. And so not about us, without us is one of the principles that I'm trying to embed in our culture in the business schools. So with my business school hat on, I think we have an amazing community at Salford that is deeply embedded with communities already. There's not a separation between us and our communities. I think what we're working hard to do better is recognise a community isn't one thing. It sounds great as a unit, right? But communities are always plural. There's a multiplicity of voices and needs and concerns, and what we have to be good at doing is creating those multiple voices into the conceptualizations and the theoretical frameworks that we're building and giving out to equip others to make sense of their world and act in their interest in the communities that they find themselves in. So I think there's 2 things in that. One is, what are the epistemic objects? What are the knowledge objects? 4-star journals, right? As researchers, as educators, we embody this knowledge, and the people we're working with also embody their own set of knowledge. And so thinking us as knowing beings and being situated within our particular context and working together through that context, and thinking, let's think about learning and knowledge wherever it happens. It doesn't have to be in a 4-star journal paper. I'm not saying they're not important. They are important. They're a discipline. They help us think with clarity. But then we should live our theories and live them with and through our relations with others. So that's something I'd really like to embed deeply in the way we talk about knowledge, the way we organise our knowledge networks, the way we think about the plurality and equity of knowledge in the school. And so that is transdisciplinary research, working with different stakeholder groups, different anchor institutions in our region, as well as embracing all sorts of people involved in scholarly activities in what we do. And then one very last thought is I'm also privileged to be the president of the British Academy of Management, and we have a colleague here who's also served on the exec. I can't see you, Lisa. Where are you? Lisa Anderson from Liverpool University. So we've done a lot of work around education and inclusive education, and really think about what excellence looks like in education and how we can create it as an inclusive and far-reaching process. And I've seen my colleagues, so my Deputy Dean's here, Liz Lana, who's been doing amazing work over a number of years in the school. And I think it's really exciting to think about how we join existing networks and existing activities where we're doing collaborative, engaged research and engaged scholarship in a very interactive and open way together. And I really hope that we can bring BAM and everything that we do in the business school into the network.
Thank you so much. That was, yeah, maybe I'll be next. You want to go next? No, please. We'll go next.
Thank you so much. I think so many colleagues and everybody has really touched upon, obviously, their expertise. But I think for me as a president, what really speaks out to me is making or having a future where everything that we do, students are a center of that. So having a very student-centered approach into our doing things. That, as I've said earlier, that we are seeing a change in the culture in the University of Salford, where a lot of students are being consulted, and not just for obviously the sake of it, but then just making sure that they're valued or their opinions really matter. Or the fact that them turning up or empowering them to give more, to say more, and taking action on those and shaping policies and defining processes when it comes to decision making. And I think that is really, really useful. I mean, as obviously you have mentioned about more diverse papers and stuff. So I think one thing that really speaks out to me is having a very diverse, let it be a panel, let it be people within the university, because as I've spoken about lived experiences, and I think I've spoken to Katy about it as well, just in the coffee break, about how useful is it to have the knowledge of different cultures or different backgrounds, and how could actually change that or open your minds up to different perceptions and how people really exist. So I think that really, really speaks out to me, because it's very vital that for us to really understand the knowledge is power, but then also equally important that what do we really think about that knowledge? Is it in terms of papers, is it in terms of lived experiences, or is it whatever we're just saying? So yeah, that's really it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you. So a lot of you already know me, but for those who might have just come in or for those who might have just joined the online stream, I'm Masud Khokhar. I'm the University Librarian and keeper of the Brotherton Collection at the University of Leeds. Very snazzy title, I know. But let me give you a little bit more context, because the rest of the conversation will be shaped by that. I'm also responsible for the education spaces strategy of the institution. So I look after how pedagogy, digital technologies, and space all play a role. In particular, how can we make the campus more porous for our communities is a key aspect in there. And for my sins, I'm also responsible for coordination of the artificial intelligence strategy of the university. So the different hats always come into play in some of these conversations. I've also literally about a week ago stepped down from being the chair of Research Libraries UK, which is a large consortium of 39 research intensive libraries in UK and Ireland. So I can also see things at scale and some of the differentiators between, let's say, Leeds, Lancaster, Oxford, or National Libraries of Scotland or Wales, etc. There are 2 or 3 key things I wanted to mention, and because I've already spoken, I won't go into the same things again. But one thing I really wanted to highlight is how we are seeing that intense, purposeful destruction and attack of knowledge. And whether that is from publishers' viewpoint, less destruction, more monopolization on that side, whether that is from tech industry side, we're seeing definitely destruction and monopolization on that, or whether that's political agendas. It made me really rethink about what our purpose is. And particularly, I'm speaking with my librarian hat on here. And one of the things that we don't really teach ourselves as an essential skill is politics with small p. How do we deal with politics at any given time? And how do we engage in certain things in a different way? How do we lobby local councils? How do we work with the universities more effectively? How do we think beyond the industries that we work in? And as Hilde was highlighting, one of our biggest issues is that we are also we've created some problems to ourselves because we've been living in slight bubbles. I don't know about you, but I cried the night Brexit happened. But the reason I cried was not just because I was losing one of my identities, but because I never expected it to happen. And that's because of all last 4 places I've lived in have all been university towns. And we were living in the university bubbles, not realizing what was the impact on rural communities and everything. So that made me immediately recognize, actually, it's not just important to have knowledge. It's even more important to communicate that knowledge in the plainest language that we can. We also have sorry, I'm just generalizing here, but we do have an ego issue as well. When we have that knowledge, we think actually we do know this knowledge very, very well. And I know real case scenarios where someone said, oh, I don't believe in this thing about climate. And we say, oh, it's because you don't understand. It's a very complex topic. Yes, it is a complex topic, but actually we've already disconnected from that community the moment we've said you don't understand. And I think one of the key things that I think will be very important in the future is equity in knowledge, but actually really important would be communication of knowledge. How we tell stories around knowledge, how we engage communities around knowledge, because we do not want to be in the same situation as we are seeing other parts of the world being impacted. So I think for me, knowledge and communication of knowledge would be a really, really critical element. The other thing that I would say is that combined combined part in this. I think we also need to think about how academic institutions from within work more closely together. I think Simone was mentioning that multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary part of the strategy. I think that is critical. We need to let go of actually this is business school, or this is social sciences, or this is medicine and health, and there are the professional services sitting down there. I think we really need to start forming more transdisciplinary teams, and particularly with communities as part of those transdisciplinary teams. So we are really understanding what's going on in their minds. We're not justifying our research to them. We're basically saying, I think multiple times, many colleagues said, work with them, not to and for them or to them. And that would be really critical in shaping the future. And lastly, I think it's also a really exciting time. I know this sounds depressing at this time. The world state looks depressing. Lots of other things look depressing. But sometimes, and apologies for my crude language, we all need a kick on our backsides to get the car in motion. And I think there's a great opportunity here for us to think about that and actually say, okay, what can we do now? Now we've seen it happen. Let's not wait. Let's not let it happen to us. Let's shape it in a different way now. And I think that's a really powerful motivator for all of us. I hope at least it is for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Yes, I think it's time now to talk with with all of you and get some of you to share your thoughts about how you can make it work for you, what you'd like to contribute, what you'd like the people in decision-making positions to do. I think the grassroots on the one hand, but also that we're all connected to larger systems is what Ken needs. So I'd love for all of us to bring in our networks, to bring in the connections we have outside of our universities and link that with this clear spirit of activism and grassroots movement that we have in the room today. Because I think all of us are somehow connected to systems that are beyond what we have in the room at the moment. I think it's time for Ken 2.0 and then thinking about how we make those systems happen, because without systems and infrastructure, clearly this can't work. And we said it before, even the community, what is the community? How do we translate the community voice into actionable research and education? And you can't do that without systems thinking. So I'd really love for all of you to share some of your thoughts and questions and whatever it is you want to discuss with the panel. I'm looking at Robbie. How long do we have for this? 15, 20 minutes. So who wants to kick us off? Lots of hands. I'm going to start with you because we haven't heard you first, and then over to Paul.
Thank you very much. I couldn't resist being in the company of two outstanding esteemed librarians to not introduce the story because I think it tells a kind of interesting point. Last week I took a day off to babysit my 18-month-old granddaughter, and I took her along to the local library to a storytelling session. I took her there on the basis that I thought that by osmosis she might get used to the idea of knowledge and books being around her and so on. She didn't understand the story. But the kind of side effect of it was that I discovered I was in, apart from the place where I buy my sourdough in Didsbury, I was in the most middle-class setting I'd ever been in the storytelling group in the local library. And it made me think about class and destiny and how the class you're born into is the class you end up in by and large, and that it's very, very hard to uncouple class and destiny. And in universities, we have an opportunity to talk amongst people who, by and large, are images of ourselves or a perpetuation of ourselves. And I wonder what more we could do to uncouple class and destiny and maybe to read to the unconverted rather than to the converted. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Who wants to go? Katy, can I ask you to answer the question first? Thank you for that question. Amazing.
That's a really great question. So we've been thinking in the school about how we can engage people. So I think there are invisible rules around university campuses, and it is difficult to walk on a campus. I think we have a huge asset just out of the window in that it's a public park. We are a park campus and it's a public park, so anybody can walk through and onto the campus. And if you've got a dog, it's a lot easier, right? I think related to that, thinking about the facilities we've got, how well they're used and how we could use them to engage people in local schools, local FE, colleges, to come onto campus and just be, right? Not expected, not to learn, although inevitably they will by just walking on. We've got a fantastic esports lab in the business school. And I think, you know, kids love that sort of thing, and bringing them in and thinking that actually that could be part of learning. It's fun learning and making those sorts of associations, and that we do it early and often. There are all sorts of challenges around. Anybody who's looked at timetabling know that it's tricky, but I think making the extra effort and going the extra mile, making space for those sorts of things. We are not open every evening. We're not teaching every evening. We have holiday time where we could use those facilities for engaging early with different communities like that. I think it'd be a great thing to do.
Thank you. Do you want to pick up there, Hilde? Because the VU also has very much a city campus that's open. And
yes, definitely. Thank you, Simone, and thank you for sharing the example of going to the library with your granddaughter. It's a good start, and I think this is we have to take every opportunity to engage with knowledge and have children from the earliest age on do this, and also, but we don't have to just open up and ask people to come to us. We have to go out as well. And I think we've been holding back too much. We thought, okay, this is a nice library. You can all come and you can all read. Yeah, right. But why do I start? In the Netherlands, the public libraries have become very active in offering all kinds of community support services, helping people with filling in their tax papers and helping them, especially during COVID times, to get digitally connected. So I think those community support that a library offers as a public library, as university libraries, we can learn and we can connect to the public libraries and work together, because that way we can work across different types of libraries and also not just wait for them to come to us, but also have them go to them and work together. And I love what you said about if it's about us, not without us. It's please somebody writing it down, because that's so wonderful, and that's what we have to do. We have to learn. We have to open up. Our university is open. Our library is open for everyone all the time. We've been fighting for that during COVID time as well, because we think it's so important for everybody to come in. People don't know all the time because it's difficult to find us sometimes, but everybody is welcome. And I think that's really important, but we have to offer them a little bit more than an open door. We have to really get them to be involved and get involved with them. Two-way street.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question, because otherwise we may not have enough time. The colleague from the University of Manchester, Paul, do you want to go next? And others, raise your hand. I'll find you afterwards.
Is this on? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. It's a fantastic conversation. I was building on my question this morning about how we interact with our communities, particularly in terms of knowledge equity. And I was really drawn to Katy's vignettes about knowledge mobilization, knowledge co-creation, and knowledge mobilization for change. And that change might be the primary intended change, or we've heard other changes such as economic benefits, etc., etc. So the real power here is definitely knowledge equity access, but equitable knowledge mobilization. I mean, I work in health and care, and we have a real challenge, don't we? Because we have evidence, we have knowledge, hopefully it's equitable, hopefully it's been created equitably. We have healthcare professionals or professional teams, and we have clients or patients, their advocates, their families. And that connection is where the action happens. That's where the change happens. And the not about me, without me is fundamental to that interaction. And I'm kind of thinking it's an open question about the knowledge equity network, is about how to engage meaningful knowledge mobilization that really is going to make a difference in the communities that we are based in, that we work in, that we live in, and actually we serve.
Yeah, if I may abuse the privilege of my chairing this session, I think it's really important that even before we start any research project, we think about the voices. We want to hear the perspectives. We want to hear the knowledge. We want to unearth. My own research background was in childbirth and pregnancy and early infancy. And in the Netherlands, when I started that work, at that time, about 40% of women gave birth at home, and the Dutch have always been quite unique. It's dwindled enormously since. And at that point, and still the same way, the majority of the research funding went into tertiary care, high-risk labor, very much obstetrician-driven care, very much about sort of the biotechnical elements of labor. And Dutch women were made to feel like they had to choose between a safe birth or a birth that actually was theirs, and they were empowered and they could be in their own homes, and the caregiver was there as a guest, not doing the labor. And so even at the start of the knowledge production, there was such a lopsided situation where it was really difficult to make women and their partners feel that this was actually a safe thing to do, because simply we couldn't produce the knowledge that was needed, which is, of course, much more narrative, much more from a sociological perspective, and not just about the cord blood, pH, and other things. And you could just see what happened as a result of that Dutch women felt that it wasn't safe to give birth at home. And there's just a group of diehards who probably know where to find the knowledge and that still want to do it. And while for their mothers and grandmothers, that was just a normal thing to do. So it's complicated, but it's also it's easier to solve when you're aware of what even is knowledge and how do we create a base of knowledge that's not just accessible, but also gets co-created with the very people that we want to use the knowledge. So yeah, sorry about my slightly long-winded answer. If it's okay, I'll go on to the next question. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. It was a marvellous conversation. I just wanted to bring in a sort of an employability aspect of things, because I think knowledge is important, research important, but we do an awful lot of work with schools and colleges and speak to parents and what is the purpose and why are they here? And I think we have given examples. We have a really strong employer network, of employers that providing real opportunities for students. So yes, developing their social skills and to be good human beings, but equally, I don't think we can forget the importance of education and employment and the link between the two.
You want to comment, Alvina, on, does it feel to you like there is enough opportunity for that kind of experience while you're at the university?
No, definitely. I agree that there are a lot of things that I think there are amazing things that are taking place at University of Salford. We have a careers hub, which is absolutely great in terms of that sense. But I don't think there's ever enough internships or placements, because we're at a time where we need to understand that students are very time poor, or they have a very hard decision to decide whether do they turn up for something that is just volunteering or whether they're getting paid for that thing. So I think maybe having paid incentives or something where students sort of feel like that they're able to contribute, because I think that's something that's ongoing in terms of discussions as well, that we need to have some more things for students or more opportunities in that sense that could weigh the benefit if they were rather being paid or being volunteers. So I think we need to find a strong balance if we are giving to the students to say that this is something that can help them out in the future. Other than that, there are still a lot of good opportunities, but then again, it depends on your careers. So I think the new strategy, the educational strategy that we have, so the hybrid engagement and having more opportunities for the students, it was something that will definitely help the students in the future sense.
And as part of the curriculum as well. Yeah. Katy pointed out there was someone who kept raising their hand who I kept ignoring.
Yeah.
Oh, Niroshni, please. And apologies for that. Thank you.
So in terms of knowledge, diversity and depth and accessibility, I mean, I understand that, that's an important aspect. And I think, Masud, you talked about the importance of communication. But the other side of the story is engagement. And we have a generation that is addicted to this with, endless scrolling capacity, information overload. I come from a little village in Sri Lanka. I remember growing up, standing for hours in a queue to get that one book, that one blighted book to read. There was a hunger there. You don't have that anymore. So how do you overcome that issue?
Masud, I think that's your question.
I think the first thing I would say is a really important question to ask is, do you want to overcome that? Because we have a very perceived thinking about what knowledge consumption looks like. And actually, we also need to accept to a level that knowledge consumption itself is changing. Lancaster and Stanford did a very small project between the two libraries where they said, do people actually learn when they do shallow learning? And as part of that, we did a lot of user experience. This is about 10 years old, by the way. It's before TikTok became big. And we did a lot of user experience-based analysis of how students were studying. And generally speaking, at any given time, they were looking at three different things. A general perception was they were reading an article while listening to something, while also speaking with a friend and constantly and interruptedly looking at their phones. And actually, when we did some assessments with them, they were learning. They were just learning in a different style that was contrary to the style that we have been brought up. Now, that's not necessarily the same learning as deep learning, and that's recognized. And in some disciplines, that's more acceptable than the other. So I think the very first thing I would really challenge us on is actually, have we shifted with the times of learning? Now, what you're highlighting is that scrolling based, and that is absolutely not consumption. That is kind of glancing at something, and that has huge impacts. My own research is around polarization and algorithmic biases that comes through that, and that has huge problems in how people can be really tweaked towards any one kind of experiential learning out of it rather than a more broader sense. This is where knowledge literacies come in really importantly. This is educational at a very early stage comes in. More importantly, this is where parents' knowledge really needs to come in. 60%, there's a UK study, I've forgotten its reference, but there's a study that was being mentioned that 60% of children's questions that they ask their parent are redirected to the other parent because they don't know the answer. Or are given false answers because they don't know the answer. So I think we really need to start thinking about how do we educate parents, communities, and children together on that one. And institutions have a role to play. We are not the only player in it, but we absolutely have a role to play in that. So that would be my personal response on that one.
Okay, there's time for one more question. It's your.
It's connected to this ongoing conversation that Niroshini pointed out under your answer. And what I'm going to ask is shaped by the series called Adolescence on Netflix, which I don't know whether people have seen. I've seen it last weekend, and I've only talking about that since for good reasons. And as you said, that we cannot think of HE institutions in isolation, community, parents, high school, what is being told to them. Majority of the students I interact with in my role in Salford is students only wants to know how this course is going to get me a job and how much marks I have to get to the job I want. And when we start to challenge that narrative, we become unpopular as teachers, right? And so these are the questions. So for example, in this kind of a meeting, we have 80% students from underprivileged network, first in the university, but we do not have any of those families in this room as an audience. We are talking about doing it with them, but why they are not here? So where are we? So when they are going to be part of this kind of events, where we can hear their voice, what they want, are we not assuming some things that maybe not what actually they want because they are not in the room? So any comment from the panel would be great for that, actually.
Who wants to answer that question? Katy?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I can't say that. So it's an interesting question. So there are times where we need people in the room, and there are times where we need to think reflexively without people in the room. And that's how we learn how to engage better. So like not all of the people all of the time. And I think even when we talk about publics and we talk about communities, because of the plurality, it ends up being a coalition of the willing. And so I think it is, how do we create spaces where willing people can step forwards, role model, and show others how? And if we're to make that happen, whether we go out into communities or we invite communities into us, and of course it has to be both, multiple, being able to have honest conversations around where we are, but also having honest reflexive spaces as well. So I was at a very interesting event run by EWC, where they were talking about the acceleration to net zero in the Greater Manchester region, and there was a gentleman there from a Muslim community saying, I am trying my best to make my house sustainable and lose as little energy as possible, and I'm finding it really hard, and I kind of know what I'm doing, and nobody's coming to my mosque and my religious community and talking to us about how we should do it, and I can't tell them because I'm still learning how to do it myself. And that was a great forum where you could have like a bridger, and those are the people that we want to spend time with, because they can help us translate and communicate, and those that aren't comfortable with stepping forward will still have access to knowledge. So we're all carriers of knowledge and practice, and looking for bridges and supporting those bridges, creating coalitions of the willing, and making universities have propulsive, structured, facilitated space where that stuff happens, I think is really important.
Thank you. Can I ask Hilde for a comment, and then I think we need to close this. Thank you, Katy. That was wonderful. You don't have to.
So many topics and so many things to it's about how to get involved the first step so difficult. We've been talking about this yesterday and with the group from Amsterdam, traveling around the UK. We hear a lot about local communities and involving them. It's the first connection, making that is sometimes the biggest threshold that you have to take. But listening, and it's really inspiring to listen to your ideas, and also listening to what Alvina has been doing here. I think that is a really important first step for us as well, that we can learn from, because if we connect to the people that are already there, and through them reach a broader community, that would be really helpful. At our university, Jeroen has said a little bit about it. We are using the concept of mixed classroom, which is really important. With that mixed classroom methodology, we hope to open up the minds of our students and give them a broader mind. So that is one way of doing it, but we also hope that this will also be a first step towards more engagement with our city and nationally, globally. So that's a few thoughts on this.
Thank you. Thanks to the panel for some great responses. One more round of applause. So I think we're getting to the end of this morning session, which by no means is the end of our collaboration and the end of the Knowledge Equity Network. It feels like we're on the brink of the next step of it. And I think there are lots of ways that we can, as I said earlier, bring our networks in, make sure we put our minds together and think about what could look like in the near future. It's great to be working with universities and others who have similar sets of values, who understand the topics. It was so clear this morning that there's already so much alignment in everything we're thinking about. It's also really clear that it's all connected, isn't it? All these topics, whether we talk about how we teach our students, how to get the voice of the community in, the kinds of research we do, the role we can play on the global stage, how to deal with the threats in the US and elsewhere, on knowledge as such a hugely important public good and something that really can change the world for the better. It's all connected. And I feel hugely encouraged. I'm extremely hopeful, and I feel like we have the best jobs in the world, be it by working at universities who are so focused on truly doing a great job for the positive change that this planet needs. So I think this, for me, was an incredibly inspiring morning. Thanks also to Jeroen for his amazing speech, and Pradeep, and of course the other speakers and the panel. And let's not forget the team who's made this possible, Robbie and Jill, who've worked tirelessly behind the scenes to bring you all together and make sure that there was coffee and that you knew where to be and that the sound was perfect and all of that. This has all been recorded, and we're going to use a lot of the thinking this morning in the communications going forward. But maybe it's best to just end by saying, let's please not lose each other and continue working together, hold on to each other, bring friends and colleagues in who you know have similar thoughts, who could use some help, who could help us inspire, and also, yeah, let's feel the power that we have as university leaders, as students, as people who can both do the grassroots and the systemic thinking. And I'm pretty sure that we can make a huge difference. We already are, but we can do even more of that by being extremely strategic. So I feel very joyful today, this morning. I feel very hopeful, and I'm also very grateful for all of you having been here, sharing your stories, your backgrounds, your thoughts, your enthusiasm. So thank you so much, and to be continued as far as I'm concerned. Thanks a lot.